Y'all got it all laid out. All laid out.
Talking like Thanksgiving. Yes, sir.
What y'all up to? No, I guess they do say if you see two black men congregating, it's a gang. They used to say it was 3 or 4, now I guess it's just 2 now. Depends on what shoe it is. Supposedly when 2 black men like us congregate, it's a gang. I told it used to be 3 or 4, but now it's just 2.
I'm fine with it. I know. Hey, you go, hey.
Good morning.
With the archive.
Me too.
I know when I met you at DJ might have told me that I didn't see the radio at WIP. Yeah, that sound like DJ, yeah. That ain't me. No. That might be Charlie. No, it wasn't there. It wasn't there when I was there. I mean, back then, that property was Charlie Scott. Drop off children. How you doing?
I think.
Ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring it together. Good morning. Welcome to another exciting installment of what the streets have themed Big Time Tuesdays at the Belmont V prestigious Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Forum, serving Charlotte as the premier source of direct-to-community information for longer than 50 years. My name is Winston Robinson. I am your facilitator, along co-facilitating Ms. Laura McClellan, Ms. Carlenia Ivory Canty, Ms. Jackie Edwards Walton, Ms. Nathalie McElrath, our timekeeper, Ms. Mary Johnson, Mr. Shea Abdullah, Mr. Gary Young, Ms. Jasmine Wright, Mr. Robert Collins, Ms. Sarita Shiro, our chaplain, our website editor and archivist, Mr. Steve Johnston, and the one-man house band, Dr. Thomas. Keep it funky. Our forum runs from 8:30 to 9:45 a.m., at which we will pause for announcements from the audience. Announcements can be sent to Steve at sjohnston@tuesdayforumcharlotte.org. That is Johnston with a T. As tradition holds. Yeah. As tradition holds, we begin with a prayer this morning. We will be joined by Associate Pastor Gary.
Good morning, good morning. Don't bow your heads, please. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come before you this morning and the opportunity for us to hear from some legends this morning. We thank you for us to see another day. We know not every day is promised. We just ask you to steward us with the power, the knowledge, and the well-being to do what all we need to accomplish. In our Father's name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Amen, amen. If it is your first time with us, please raise your hand. All right, Robert, if you would take this mic around and allow our first-time guests to introduce themselves just by name. Just give us a name.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nigel Malone. I'm really grateful to be here. I know we're going to get some great information.
Thank you, Nigel. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. Always, like to start by having a moment for silence. That is when we take a moment to silence our phones. Not just the ringer, but the content as well. Yeah, all right, Don't let us know what's on your algorithm in the middle of a speech. So please, the notifications as well as the content, please silence your phones. All right, so following today's presentation by our guests, you know the rules. Questions are 30 seconds, responses are 2 minutes. Questions should be questions. We do not do back and forth, we do not debate. The answer you receive is the answer you have to accept. We abide by the West Side Rules of Order, in which it is what it is. Now, this morning is not just another discussion. This is a conversation about vision. We are discussing Soul City, one of America's most ambitious and consequential planned communities, experiments in modern American history. A utopia imagined in the American South, built on boldness, tested by political will. Soul City forces us to confront a larger question. What happens when imagination outpaces the comfort of an area? We have, I can't believe it. I didn't pay any money. But yet, right here, in the flesh, I can't believe it. All it took was a call. But okay, we are honored to have Mr. Harvey Gantt, architect, civic leader, former mayor of Charlotte. We're just gonna his black graduation rules, just it's so much, just opportunity for applause, it'll kill our time. So just, please y'all, I know, just save it to the end. But he was directly engaged with the planning of Soul City and has long time stood as just so much, but at the intersection of vision and implementation, an entire life of that. And Soul City is at the early part of that story, one of his first opportunities out of MIT. And we also have Dr. Charmaine Mack, McKissick Milton, aka Dr. Mack. Dr. Mack, known as our beloved student. She is a scholar, a professor, a cultural historian whose academic work and lived experience bridges media, civil rights, history, and political development. She is still a steward of Soul City's legacy as the youngest daughter of Judge Floyd McKissick. She carries both scholarship and the memory of what was envisioned by her father. Please, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Charmaine McKissick Milton. right quick. And for like that, we're gonna have a moment for silence. As I understand, Jesse Jackson passed away. You say this morning.
Yes. This morning.
This morning.
84 years old. This morning.
If you will, please, a moment for Jesse Jackson. Thank you. So before we go into questions, I'd like to give each of the panel what do you think? 2 to 3 minutes. How about that, Ms. Nathalie? 2 to 3 minutes to just give more of a frame of Soul City from their perspective. We'd like to start with Dr. Mack.
I think we should just give them whatever they think they need to do.
When you hear that,
We're not
no rules, Ms. Nathalie. Just-
Tell us what you want
Go
to
ahead.
know.
Good morning, everybody.
From the beginning.
My former students all call me Dr. Mack. I'm recently a retired professor in mass communications at North Carolina Central University, but I've taught a number of places, including, let's see, what's here in this state? A&T, Bennett College, Fayetteville State, I think that's all in North Carolina. I went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and my colleague is in the back there, Jackie, and I went to school together. Let's do the classic stuff. So I went to undergrad at Carolina, master's Northern Illinois University, specialized in radio, TV, film, master's at Northern Illinois, and a PhD at the University of Kentucky in mass communication with the continent area race relations. Anyway, that's the classic stuff. I actually live in Soul City. I've been there 20 years with my husband, and I am currently the president of the Soul City Parks and Recreation Association, which is the original homeowners association of Soul City. I'll get a little bit more into that maybe in our conversation, but we have been a little asleep since COVID, and I have revitalized the organization. And about 6 months ago, I heard that our fire station was in jeopardy and was on suspension. So my husband jumped in to do that. So we are still moving along in Soul City. There are new houses coming along. And so when I see things like I did yesterday about it being a ghost town, I got a little, like frankly, the word's pissed.
Mr. Gann.
Boy, that's interesting.
Second one.
Green light.
Green light.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm delighted to be here with you again. Charlene?
Charmaine.
Charmaine.
It's okay. Known her since I was like 13.
You were, when I came there, you were a child. I mean, didn't get to know you very well. But that speaks to what my age is, and I'm reminded of that this morning when Jesse Jackson, my friend, passed. And it brought back memories of going all the way back into the civil rights movement. I came to the idea of Soul City as I was trying to figure out where I was going to go to work in Boston, getting a graduate degree there, and had always been a student of politics. So you will recall that in 1968, the year I was graduating was also the year that Richard Nixon was elected president of the United States, running against Hubert Humphrey, and it was a very, very volatile political year. The big issue was Vietnam, and the terrible circumstances of the Democratic National Convention changed the world, in my opinion, because Richard Nixon won that election because of that convention, because of Vietnam, and so forth and so on. I was coming out of school trying to figure out what to do, and was pleased to see what had occurred in the civil rights movement. Everybody who had marched and demonstrated and all that stuff, we were kind of patting ourselves on the back because of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Voting Rights Act of 1965, and then belatedly the Housing Act of 1968. Federal legislation was taking away everything, not everything, but resolving a lot of the issues that people had fought for over 50 years to accomplish. So there was a kind of interregnum, a kind of period there where there was not a tremendous amount of marches. And then, of course, what started to occur were riots. The riots of the 60s, 64, right on through, exacerbated by the war and all the other kinds of things going on, and what was happening in urban environments, particularly in the northeastern part of the country, and in urban areas in the Midwest and the Far West. Why did I say all that? Because civil rights leaders at that point were looking for new goals and new challenges. We were upset by Martin Luther King being killed, assassinated in 1968. I'm sorry, 1967, I believe. 68. And there was a kind of dark mood and confusion in the African American community nationwide. There were new kinds of voices that were speaking out and saying, you know, we've been good enough, nonviolent enough, and younger advocates were talking about, you know, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, so to speak. And people like Stokely Carmichael started to appeal to a lot of folks rather than the nonviolent message of Martin Luther King. And then there was Floyd McKissick, who had followed Jim Farmer as the director of CORE. And I'd been following him and what was going on. And on my way out of graduate school, I took a trip to New York to visit McKissick Enterprises. I had heard about this utopian city he was thinking about doing, called Soul City. And that appealed to me. I had just gotten a degree in planning, and this was a tremendous opportunity to go work with some folks who were trying to build this ambitious, visionary new town. And it was in North Carolina, which is where I intended to go back to. So one thing led to another. Mr. McKissick and I had a very nice meeting. He said, I know you might be recruited by some folks who might want you to stay in Boston or come to New York or work in some office building. But I want to entice you and attract you to come to go to work in a trailer and work on this new town. And I was intrigued by that. And the rest is history.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
So my first introduction, let's go back a little bit with my dad, just to give you an idea of the kind of person he was. So he spoke in the March on Washington, 1963, where everybody knows Dr. King had died to have a dream speech. He wasn't supposed to speak, but Jim Farmer was in jail. So he read Jim Farmer's speech. I actually just found out, because I kept thinking, it don't sound like him, the words. And I just found out about 3 years ago, that's what happened. He was reading he was reading Jim Farmer's speech. At any rate, from that, he ended up being director of CORE. But when he left to go to California to the CORE convention, he promised my mama, no, I'm not taking any positions. No, I'm gonna stay right here in Durham and continue what I'm doing. And I turned on Walter Cronkite's 6 o'clock news. A prominent Negro attorney has been like, Mama, we moving to New York? And that's exactly how that happened. Sometimes he was, but I don't want to use the word, but he definitely took on causes that weren't always the easiest thing to win or the easiest path to go. So when he officially left the civil rights movement and created McKissick Enterprise to promote Black economic development, he had an office on 125th Street in New York City, kind of diagonally across the street from the Apollo. And so I knew about the economic development and all the variety of things McKissick Enterprises was doing. But one of these things popped up as this new community in North Carolina, Soul City. I was a teenager. Let's be clear, as the youngest child, I moved a lot because of my dad's mouth. Now, let's be clear, going back a little history, again, to give my siblings some credit. They became the first to desegregate Durham Public Schools, my oldest sister, in 1959. So Jocelyn and Andre desegregated the high school and the junior high. A few years later, my brother and I integrated, along with about 5 other kids, the elementary schools in Durham, North Carolina. I happen to be the youngest, so I've been the first and only since the 3rd grade. So when I heard that comment when I'm working on a PhD 30 years later, that I don't know how to do time management, but hey, better talk to somebody else. Back to the point of the story. So we had grown up in the movement. Knew Dr. King, Stokely used to hang out at the house in New York, all those famous people. Yeah, I mean, I knew them as Uncle so-and-so, pretty much. And moving to Soul City was different. I was in one school in the 5th grade in North Carolina, 6th grade another school, 7th grade another school, 8th grade another school, 9th grade another school, and I finally found my people. I was enrolled at the LaGuardia High School of Music and Art in New York. Singing, modeling, dancing, acting, doing what I wanted to do, sometimes making money. And my dad said, we're moving to Soul City. We lived in a brownstone in New York City. I loved where I was going to school. I finally found my people. Sort of that artsy crowd. So we moved from a brownstone to a mobile home on a dirt road in Warren County. And I finished my last year of high school. I graduated from John Graham High School in Warrenton, North Carolina. So that's my introduction to Soul City. It was definitely a major transition moving from New York City in a brownstone to a mobile home on a dirt road. And believe me, somebody asked me the other day, so how long y'all been living in that house that your daddy and mama built? This coming Thanksgiving, that house will be 50 years old. I always say to people, I hope I look a little younger than I am, but I turned 70 this summer. So let's be clear, this ain't no couple of years ago. Like they say on Facebook, you think 1980 was like 10 years ago. It was really like 30 years ago. You know, because that's what we think. So that's my introduction to Soul City. We lived in that mobile home for over 6 years before my mama finally built her house. Let's be clear, it's a nice, big, pretty house. But my mama was building a house since I was in kindergarten. She lived in a lot of pretty homes, but she never got to build the home she wanted until I was a senior in college. So that's my introduction to Soul City. I still live there, like I say. I'm still involved in community politics. And when I go to the county commissioners meeting, they all want to open their mouth, oh God, we should hear to talk about it. But I'm there to keep Soul City alive in a lot of respects. So a couple of years ago, probably about 5 years ago, right before COVID, most people heard it because a young lady in Raleigh, a teenager, went to open up a pool and the electrical system was not right. She died. I heard about that and thought about our pool. That pool was going on 40 years old at that time. I then gave the Parks and Recreation Complex to the county of Warren County. I then worked on the County Parks and Recreation Association and got a bunch of party grants to keep that going. The last ones finally realized right after COVID, where we resurfaced all the tennis courts, the basketball courts, fixed up the pool, a whole bunch of other stuff. And it is now thriving. My husband is now on that board. Gotta keep it in the family. Gotta make sure we're still accountable. And just to continue, because let's be clear, Warren County is still one of the poorest counties in the state. Very large, second largest land mass county, but very, very poor. The average income in Warren County is less than $40,000 a year in 2025. So I had to throw that part in so we get some clarification.
So again, just a little context for those who aren't familiar. Soul City was part of HUD's Newtown projects, right? And HUD, Soul City was one of 13 concepts selected to get federal funding to essentially start a new town. Now, all of the concepts for these towns were pretty much suburbs. One that we might know is Harveston, South Carolina. If you've been to Columbiana Mall, that is Harveston, that's one of them. Soul City was the only attempted freestanding city. Harvey Gantt, fresh out of college, in a world before internet, hey, let's build a regional water system. How do you start that? This was a plantation, and they took 3,500 acres of plantation land.
Over 5,000. Over 5,000.
Over 5,000.
5,000 acres.
To essentially build a city from scratch. They had hubs, Soul Tech 1, affordable housing. It was a community built on self-sufficiency. One thing that I will always admire is somebody having the opportunity to do something they believe in. And Soul City was the ultimate moonshot. So let me ask you this question just to kind of set the tone for discussion. Was Soul City a victim of systems, or were systems a victim of Soul City? Would Jesse Helms have been inevitable?
There we go.
Or is, did Soul City just bring out a Jesse Helms?
Let me you jumped way ahead of this. Let me back up a little bit. There were 13 designated new towns. This was not a necessarily popular idea with the Democratic Party. Floyd was a Republican, not a MAGA Republican.
No, no.
But he was a Republican who was in the right place at the right time to do the thing that he had envisioned. And Nixon, the president, the new president, was all about capitalism, and Floyd shrewdly adapted black capitalism as being as important as the civil rights movement had been to changing the laws of this country. But he had a very great vision of the notion that in economic development, we were still lacking. And I might add, maybe still even today.
Yeah.
But his notion was to do something very ambitious. Warren County was a county made up of agricultural workers, low-paying jobs, one of the poorest counties in the state of North Carolina. And yet he had the audacity, and we talked about this in New York. My question was, why do you think you can start a new town in the middle of a cornfield or tobacco field? 3,000, 5,000, doesn't matter. Why do you think you can start a town that way when the 12 other designated new towns that were up for guarantees? And the way that program worked was the federal government would give you guarantees of a certain amount of capital to build the infrastructure, or at least to assist in the building of the infrastructure. It was giving you the seed money to begin to develop a city. And the seed money would allow you to build streets, roads, public facilities, water, sewer treatment plants, that kind of stuff. The rest of the money was going to come from where? The private sector. What Floyd's vision was is, if I got a hold of the guarantees promised to my new town, which was $14 million, then I might be in a position to attract dollars from black communities, white communities, whatever, and really build this city of 50,000 people. That's the scale we were talking about. 50,000 people on 5,000 acres. Water sewer systems that were way advanced to what was in Warren County at that time. As a matter of fact, we all know now that it was through Soul City that we now feed the towns in Warren County from the water system that was developed as a result of the engineering we did to build the water system for Soul City. Anyway, back to the main story is that you were depending on government funds for infrastructure, private sector money to build the facilities. The state of North Carolina allowed a planning agency to be developed. And that's who I really worked for. I didn't work for McKissick Enterprises. I worked for something called the Warren Regional Planning Corporation. We called it WRPC. And I got there early and helped with a number of folks that Floyd already had on staff to assemble a team of architects and engineers to plan this new town, to see whether physically we could do it, to see whether the lay of the land would allow us to build new communities. Bottom line, it was an ideal place to do it. We spent, and my time at Soul City was spent 18 months really just working on that plan. But when I reflect on it after all these years, that was a hell of an ambitious plan. 50,000 people would, more than triple the size of the existing county in terms of population, maybe more than that. And they would have to come from other places. And that's what Floyd envisioned. He saw it as a utopian community in the sense that you were getting away from all this congestion in the urban areas of the country. That lots of people would want to come because of jobs, because of facilities, because of libraries, because of the social welfare programs that he had in mind. And this would be a magnet for that region. But there's some other things that were happening. Jesse Helms was a big-time television reporter or commentator who did not really like this notion of federal government giving all this money to one black man to build what he called something that could never happen. But he was not a senator at the point that we started this. When I went to North Carolina, when I came back to North Carolina in 1970, remember Jesse Helms had not won a Senate seat, but he did win a Senate seat in 1972, at about the time that the guarantee and the work would start, at about the time that I came back to Charlotte. And Jesse and all the forces behind him never wanted to see Soul City succeed. So, Mr. McKissick was up against a political structure, even though at that time we had a Democratic governor and some other kinds of things that supported us in that sense politically, they were not nearly as strong as the voice of Helms himself and others who supported that. I must have made with my team at least 20 trips to Washington, D.C., presenting developing a plan for the city made up of 10 activity centers and single-family housing and multifamily housing, built in the most modern settings. And HUD never had a problem with the plan, but we could never get approval, full approval. Every time we go to come back, we'd satisfy some requirement that they had, but the plan never got approval. So we would say to Mr. McKissick, you know, we think this is beyond the merits of the plan itself, the engineering of the plan. None of that was in trouble. What was really in trouble was their lack of belief that if they put all this money in, and $14 million back then might be the equivalent of about 140 million today, if you think of it that way. They weren't going to put this money in if they didn't think people were going to come there. And so Floyd got criticized for everything from the name, it's not good, Soul City means it's going to be an all-black town. And to his credit, he simply said, I'm not going to change that name. And he stuck to that. So at the time that I left to come back to Charlotte, the plans required by the act were done, and money started to come, I think, in 1972. I'm gonna stop there because I'm sure you got a lot of other questions in between.
Would you like to add this?
This is probably not a completely correct statement anymore, but Jesse Jackson at my dad's funeral said, Floyd was permanently deranged. He always thought of things that other people thought were out of this world, and why would you try that? Again, that's not politically correct, but I thought about it while I was sitting here and thinking about Jesse. And let's be clear, Jesse was introduced to Dr. King by way of my dad because Jesse went to A&T. My first memories of Jesse is coming to the house on Roxborough Street in Durham. And as I say jokingly, but it's true, I thought he was fine, I did. I thought he was a cute little Negro. I'm a little girl, let's keep it in mind. I'm the youngest of the four. But my memory is, do you really need to eat that last piece of fried chicken again on Sunday afternoon before you go back to Greensboro? But he's always been sort of a semi-part of the family. And like when I was in North Carolina Central, he came to campaign for Barack Obama. And, you know, we were there, Floyd and I, my brother. I think many people know Floyd because Jr. was a state senator, and he is now currently the only person of color on the State Utilities Commission. So I'll just throw that in. I was going to go back one other thing because Carver was talking about it. You mentioned the regional water system, that there were a lot of different entities in Soul City, companies to do different things. So yes, the Warren Regional Planning Corporation, that was their primary goal. Started with McKissick Enterprises, then they created the Soul City Company, which then had spinoffs from there. One of those spinoffs, talking about the regional water system, was the Soul City Sanitary District. And those were actually the first elected officials of Soul City, who helped to create the regional water system. By the way, that regional water system still exists. It originally started for Warren County, Vance County, and Granville County. So when you leave Durham and you cross over the water there, from that point straight to the Virginia line, there would be nothing on those interstate exits without that regional water system, including like the Butner Prison, where all the famous people go, anything from a Smithfield's barbecue to a Hardee's to you name it, everything on those exits straight from Durham and crossing that border, which is Granville County, all of that really relates to Soul City and his original regional planning. The Soul City Sanitary District, as I said, were the first elected officials. My mother was the chairperson, and then the other two commissioners were Jim Vroom, whose family had moved from New York down to Soul City with 5 kids, and the third one was Lou Myers, who was actually my brother-in-law at the time, but a expert and had an MBA, from Carolina, and he did a lot of other things. So the regional, I want to say that as of, 3 months ago, now that regional water system is also supplying water to Franklin County. So Soul City's impact still exists today because of some of that original planning that was done. There's a new high school, well, not real new, but kind of new, in Warren County. And that is some of the funds for that still came way back from the planning back in the 70s. So, and as of today, in Warren County, the only place that is significant to bringing industry or businesses is Soul City. It's called Triangle North. And the reason why? That infrastructure is still there, and that's the only place in Warren County that has it.
Come on now. We got a question from Mr. Ken Coons.
I'm gonna take the point of privilege because you have struck in the dinosaur's nerve. You were that feisty little girl that I remember, Floyd McKissick, from back in the day. And let me tell you why. I remember that.
Oh God, what did I do?
I remember the establishment of the Office of Minority Business Enterprise, OMBE. Bob Brown, Floyd McKissick, Vernon Sawyer, Elizabeth Coates, who was the first black president of NEA. No relation, my name is Ken Coates. But that plan never approved. In 1972, and it may have been a little after then, that I went to Soul City to do a story about it. And what became clear to me, Harvey, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Soul City was moving away from an agrarian foundation to more of a warehousing distribution that would have moved away from everybody working on the farm. And also, in those early 70s, when it was a dream deferred, I had a chance to meet and talk to Fred Johnson, who established Harbison. He almost hired me as his PR director. And Dick Moore at North Carolina A&T. I was at his first Black conference, and I was the keynote speaker on their Friday night student banquet, and we'll talk more about this later. My question is, I remember when I went up and did that story, and the story was around the fact that it was deferred in terms of where it was originally planned and how it was going to get there. And what I recall seeing was a lot of that infrastructure, but land that was fallow where roads had been built to accommodate that distribution center. And part of that experience, as of 2 weeks ago, I gave my daughter a license tag that I got from Soul City, 1972. And she was blown away by it. And so my question to you is, how you doing? Good gracious, my life has been a long time. And I was a reporter then, just as Harvey was making his foray into architecture in Charlotte. So it's a pleasure to see you after 50 years.
Thank you so much. How am I doing? I'm scared to hear your story about what I did, because I did have a few, let's put it this way. A lot of people say I'm a lot like my dad, a little bit more than my brother, because he's a politician. I'm the academician. So yeah, I say it fine. I will tell it like it is. I will speak my mind, because I don't have to play the game of politics game. But he's a politician, so he has a different role. In fact, there's a funny story. I had won't call any names here. I used to teach media law, so I know about slander and libel. But I had a nemesis down the hall at North Carolina Central. Unfortunately, a black female. And so my last semester at Central, I kind of knew it. After COVID, I'm like, let me come back and teach face-to-face for a year. Because COVID was horrible. I mean, teaching online and Zoom for a year and a half just was really debilitating. Well, everybody else gained weight during COVID. My husband and I lost 10 pounds. Because we were Zooming all day and all night. You know, kiss each other in the morning, have a cup of coffee and a banana. He goes downstairs and Zooms all day. I go to the blue room and Zoom all day. To answer your story, bottom line, at Central, The last semester I was there, I was gonna speak at Duke. And so I went online, they had a little flyer, and I thought, that's so cute looking. I'm gonna print it out and put it on my door, quite frankly, just to bother the woman down the hall. But it said on their activist, so I called my son, we were talking about something, I said, Daniel, they said I'm an activist. I don't consider myself that. He said, Mom, you used to talk all the time about stuff at that institution. You tell people what you think all the time. Then when they decided not to pick you as chair of a department, when you knew you were way more qualified than the black man, you sued the institution, you won, you still there and you still talking. Shh, Mom, that's an activist. That's how I'm doing.
There it is, Miss Jackie Edwards Walton has a question.
My question was answered, in that, but, you know, I wanted to say, you know, I grew up in the Black Belt, I'm from Nashville.
Yep.
And,
Right down the road.
y'all are aware that in the last 30-some years, 3 governors have been from that area.
That's right.
But I grew up working those tobacco fields also. And, my question had to do with the economic driver that lake was. I mean, being from Nash County, it was such a big deal. Soul City in '68, when Darnell's uncle was running for governor, and Eva Clayton.
Yep.
I mean, '68 was wonderful for us. But as I said, my question had to do with the economic driver of that lake, and those 3 counties in what you did there. But you answered the question.
Yeah. I'll just say that former Congresswoman Eva Clayton was also one of those first early participants of Soul City. She was with the Soul City Foundation, which was sort of our nonprofit entity doing a variety of things. She is still my second mama, and she is 93 years old. No, 92. Forgive me. 92 years old, still thriving, still kicking, lives on Lake Gaston, and I actually owe her a phone call because I ain't talked to her since Christmas.
All right, Mr. Gann, you answered my earlier question in terms of, one, where was it and why Wilson, but I guess I would ask a broader question. Of all the places in the United States of America, why this particular spot? I mean, particularly in an area where the racial and the social climate was, tense. It was like that across the country, I'm sure, but more particularly in the South. Why this location more than, finding acres of land in upper New York or something like that?
You would take
Well, he was from North Carolina. And I think there was logic for me that why not try to build a new town on virgin land, not under the soft underbelly of a major urban area. All the other new towns had a much easier time because all they were doing, they were really literally bedroom communities. It would be like if Soul City were planned for Huntersville.
Right.
You see, the attraction would not be the new town as much as Charlotte. And people wanted to get somewhere near it, and they wanted to be in a better planned town. Harbison, Columbia, the Woodlands in Texas, these were new towns, and they were all bedroom communities, in my opinion. People were attracted to them because they were better planned. We thought we were better. We were planning the way to position housing, mixed housing, single-family housing, its relationship to the park system, to the greenways, all the other kinds of things we had in that plan. Developers were not necessarily doing in the urban sprawl that we were witnessing in the country back in the 60s. Floyd's visions was one that everybody looked at and said, good luck, fella. Lots of black people said, why are you doing this way out there in the country? I actually lived in Durham those 2 years and drove every day to that site. And sometimes, particularly after being frustrated by HUD and not having that plan approved, I wondered why I was doing this. And every time I wondered that way, here comes Floyd McKissick. And he would have made a great football coach. Because even if you were losing the game, he actually was good at motivating people. And so we turn around and get to those drawing boards again and try to address whatever minor comments were coming back. I am pleased that some of the infrastructure work we did, with Hazen and Sawyer being our water sewer folks, some of that is benefiting some people today. But I often imagine if in fact 50,000 people had migrated to this town and we saw lots of businesses, what would the impact have been on not just North Carolina, but the country, to have seen that model and what it could have done in other rural areas of the South and in places in the North and Northeast. Often wondered what would happen. But concluded, unlike you, being a student of politics, that the deck was stacked much too high. And while I was encouraged, even when I came back to Charlotte, that first major building, Soltech, we designed that facility. The Face Health Center, we designed that facility just as we envisioned it to be. And our hope was Soltech would take off, would get more and more jobs, investors would start to see that this could work. But it couldn't work under the pressures that that Soul City was getting. Everything from an audit that was not favorable to the political environment at that time, and ultimately had to close around 79 or 80.
79.
So what's left behind are the brave people who live there now, who built houses there, but it's really a smidgen of what Gordon McKissick envisioned, and we as planners envisioned, and what we thought would really happen.
Let me add to why. One of the other reasons is the husband of Congresswoman Eva Clayton is T.T. Clayton, an attorney. I can't remember not knowing him. As a little girl, let's keep in mind, way back in the day, black folk, we keep up other black folk in our house. So when T.T. was a first-year law student at Central, he lived with us, I think, that first semester or year. So I've known him all my life. And my father encouraged him to go and be the first interracial law firm in the state. The other people claim it, but it's actually T.T. Clayton. She actually called me not long ago and said, we need to work on that, girl, and get that straight, so we on the record for that. And anyway, so he moved to Warren County. And because he was there, my dad enlisted in him and helped him to buy the land. Let's be clear, in 68, 69, when people are buying 1,000, 1,500, 1,200 tracts of land, we call them by the owner's name, the P tract of this tract. It was a little clandestine, because they won't want to sell that land, no black man really know that. So T.T.'s famous line, he told me this not long before he passed, yeah. They asked me, so what y'all gonna do with that? He said he'd look out over the land longingly and say, make a nice golf course. Because he couldn't tell them we were gonna build a whole city. And that's how we accumulated this tract and that tract and that tract and that tract. So a lot of it was the relationship, knowing about Warren County, and quite frankly, in the mid-60s, before we moved to New York, he and T.T. were working on something like a co-op store. Because in Warren County at the time, at the beginning of Soul City, it was about 65, 70% black, and then the rest was split between Native Americans, the Hallowassa Pony tribe, and white folks. So that's a little also part of why Soul City, but really it's because the beautiful rolling hills, what he also discussed about the area and the development of it moving forward, Carr Lake being close to us, all of those things in particular, but a lot of TT Clayton, making sure we could buy all that land in 1968, 69.
It's also what, 7, 8 miles from I-85, 30 miles from I-95?
2 miles from Interstate 85. At the time, the Seaboard Coastline Railroad still runs right through the property. Some of that transportation mode 50 years ago does not come through there anymore, but they are supposedly talking about an S line now in Raleigh that's gonna be the fast rail, that's gonna go from Raleigh to Richmond, eventually DC. That will come straight through us, and supposedly there'll be a stop. That's what they're talking about. I don't know if I believe in 15, 20 years from now, in my opinion. I looked it all online. They say there's gonna be a stop in North Line now, which is about 5 miles from Soul City.
I mean, it checks out, all of the things, the bones are there to make a city. Again, to Senator Hills' credit, it would be the ideal spot for a son uptown. Because crossing into Virginia isn't exactly Canada, so but it's right there on the border, I think. We have another question from Samir. Mr. Little, excuse me.
Okay, if I may step away from Soul City for a second and go to Harvey with the question. We know that you're one of the first to graduate from Clemson, the first mayor of Charlotte. What were some of the major or first challenges you had to face that you brought from Soul City into Charlotte to try and develop or build your business? Because you had your own company as an architect. So what was, trying to get Charlotte to accept a black engineer doing what you were doing? What were those challenges like?
I hope I get this right. First of all, I actually always thought that having worked on the new town and planning it from rows of tobacco to envisioning it as a very modern city was an advantage. And the experience that I gained was invaluable. I already told you what my disappointment is. When I established the firm with Jeff Huberman in Charlotte, there were no black architects in Charlotte, as big as it was. And I used to think of it the other way around, which was we had a black architect in Soul City before we had one in Charlotte. No, that's not quite true, but yeah, it is true. And I came with a lot of confidence that here was a city that was right for my profession and that I could make a difference simply by being good at what I did. And my first building was an office building that I did for a young black attorney. That building is still there today. And the theory behind it was pretty much like Floyd, in the sense that, if you've got talent and you know what you're talking about, you can get people to do things and convince them that you can do it well. And I said, I had that confidence level that said I had worked on a new town, no matter whether it ultimately became a 50,000 person city. I had worked on all the mechanics of infrastructure that could put that together, and there wasn't an architect in Charlotte at that point that had done that. And so I was confident that we could succeed, and we did.
Samir? Thank you.
My name is Samir Hamid. I'm a Charlotte native. I have a clothing brand called Family Matters, and today, actually, 9 years ago, 2017, we released a collection called Soul City when I had discovered that Soul City was a thing. And, we did some extensive research, and, it's just an honor for both of y'all to, for me to meet both of you. One of my favorite quotes from the research we did was, I believe from your father, that said, "Let Soul City be a lesson for all of us that man can go as far as his dreams take him." And we went there. I saw the hospital or the medical facility. It's pretty much still standing now. And I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the legacy that y'all built, and it's an inspiration for people in Charlotte for what's possible. And my question is, what does it take to rebuild it? Is that what's going on there?
What are the bones like? We got good bones on this property. Soul City can be again.
I get that question a lot. I do public speaking frequently. I mean, that's my area. I taught speech for 30 years. And I get it a lot. And I say to people, I'm 70. I won't be able to do that. This is not my area of expertise. On the other hand, between my husband and I, we're involved in everything in Soul City. Like I just said, I'm president of president of Soul City Parks and Recreation Association, which is our first homeowners. And I'm just gonna be honest with this group of people. Because of the planning, tears come to my eyes, even sometimes now, because Soul Tech won and a piece of land near there, which we did not own, the Collins tract. That is the Warren County Prison. And Soul Tech 1 has become part of the prison system. It is where janitorial products are made for the entire state. It does. The first time I drove by and saw the fence up around the prison, and we gave a few conditions about, could you plant some real fast growing trees so we could at least not have to look at that the way we had seen before. That's Soul Tech 1 was where all the original offices of the various entities of Soul City, but also the back of the building, already had planned, was sort of an incubator facility for new industries to come and start immediately without having to build a building and the infrastructure's there. So it hurts me a little bit that in some respects our infrastructure helped to create, the prison. And that Soul Tech 1 is that. But, as my father used to say, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So yeah, the warden of the prison knows me. I've been there. I have toured the facility, toured the janitorial products facility, because I need to know. This is how it happened about 10 years ago. I heard an alarm. I thought, is somebody out? Do I need to know? Because I live close. Truly, it was actually the fire department, so praise the Lord. But that's what started me thinking about the impact of that prison. Ironically, the former partner of T.T. Clayton became a state representative, and Frank Balance is the one who helped suggest that we build that prison there. He's deceased now. But it gives me some angst to think that the office space is part of the prison system. On the other hand, as I already said, Soul City still in Warren County, the only place that has the infrastructure to bring people there. And I actually saw your stuff online. I sort of wondered who it was, so let's chat afterwards. Okay, all right. But it is still a place where, and I'll be honest, sometimes I will, this happened to be not long ago, and during COVID and Food Line. And same sort of phenomena about Soul City. I went to Carolina. And yeah, they're Tar Heels, right? But us black folks have a shirt that says Bar Heels. Black alumni reunion, okay? And the girl, a white girl, she was young, probably high schooler, and she had to tell me that my shirt was wrong. You notice there's some mistake on your shirt. I said, well, no, honey, just read a little more clearly. Black Alumni Reunion. And every time I wear my Soul City t-shirt, the original ones from back in the day, I kind of get to say, oh, you live in? What is that? So I've taken an active role in doing a lot of different things in Soul City just to keep the concept of what it was alive. You come look at it today too. So to bring you up to date, the Health Co building has been bought by a gentleman. The entity is called the Soul City CDC, Community Development Corporation. I always say, this is my common way of explaining them, they're an eclectic group of people who all seem to have gone to Carolina in the 90s. Took a course with a friend of mine who teaches about Black economic development. They heard about Soul City in the 90s, and they decided as a group, about 10 of them, that if any of them ever got any money, they'd come back and try to fulfill the dream of Soul City that Fort McKissick had. So, they have bought the Health Co building. They have bought the annex to the Health Co building, which they call the Oasis. Their address is 365 Liberation Road. No, excuse me, I live on Liberation. Theirs is 365 Soul City Boulevard. And they also bought probably 6 or 7 houses within our first subdivision. I'm not really sure what they're doing. I've dealt with them. As I said, they're an eclectic, interesting group of people. I'm very businesslike. Like recently, I've told people, I'm not buying Zoom, I'm retired. I can use a 40-minute free one. We can get our business done in 40 minutes. And I can. I got my agenda rolling. We know what we're doing. We vote, we discuss, we roll. These people are a little different. And I have not figured a way yet between my husband and I to get down to business on what y'all gonna do with these buildings. The Health Co building's been sitting for over a year. Don't know. The Oasis is sort of open and they do a few things. I am more than willing to work with these new people. I haven't figured out quite how yet. But we are friendly, and right now we get along. So that's a move in a positive direction. But I am a little frustrated that he bought that building a year ago and there's nothing happening. I think the concept of what I hear, thank you. I think the concept of what I hear was it was originally gonna be, they wanted to recreate a health facility. What they didn't understand is that they needed some of that federal money to bring people in, called who driving an hour or 45 minutes to Soul City for a job, probably not necessarily gonna live there. Let me add one more thing, I know I got 30 seconds. We are building new houses in Soul City. The second subdivision was called Pleasant Hills. And they are now building new houses in Pleasant Hills. There are 4 on that first street and another 4 on the back street. And they are still part of my homeowners association.
Before we go to Faith, how many, what's the population of Soul City?
You know, I don't really know at this point, but the original subdivision was there, which is about 75 lots. So that's at least 75 homes. We still have, I think, 5 school buses that come there every day, from kindergarten straight through high school. I would guesstimate the ballpark of a few thousand people.
Faith.
Good morning. I feel like I'm 6 years old listening to my parents talking with their friends, drinking beers and playing cards, and just a history, so thank you so much. My question is, any resentment, bitterness, or just, dreams deferred in this time of 2025 and just the struggles that really have not changed?
I see you can pick up the mic, Harvey. It's difficult for me to see things like Minnesota and not reflect on how that relates to what I went through as the first Black child in 3rd grade by myself and all the things that all my siblings went through way before me, 59. And I have 2 sons, and one no longer watches the news. He told me, I can't take it, Mom. I'll see a few snippets on my social media, but it's just really too depressing to watch every day. Now, my brother and I are news junkies, so yeah, I watch everything all the time. I know what's going on. I read. This is not about Soul City. This is about our country. This is not something I plan on divulging, but here goes. My mother went to dialysis Monday, Wednesday, Friday. My sister went Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I was primary caregiver for both. But late in life, I became my oldest sister, the one that desegregated Durham Public Schools in 1959. When she graduated high school, I graduated kindergarten. I became her legal guardian after she had a double aneurysm of the brain. They had polycystic kidney disease. Nobody knew about it. It's one of those sort of silent diseases you don't know until you right near the end when your kid is about to go. So I've known for 20 years, but I've told my doctor recently, we're not doing like my mama. We ain't gonna put no shunt. We ain't doing this. I am now at the point where I need a kidney because it's polycystic kidney disease. It's not like you see on TV, oh, my niece, my nephew, my cousin, my brother. Well, guess what? Everybody in my family probably got it because that's how it works. My point is, my perspective changed a little bit when somebody told me you need a kidney. And when I found out that Donald Trump, I woke up and I saw in the middle of the night that he was winning. I had hope for Kamala, but I also understood the realistic conditions. I kind of stayed in bed the next day a little bit. So my hope is back. I'm on a transplant list at Duke, at Atrium in Winston-Salem, and at the University of Virginia at Richmond. I got tested here, there, you name it. As I said to my friend yesterday, I take a kidney from whoever called me first, I go. But that is where I am, and my perspective changed about this whole country in a way. And I really said to my husband, I'm gonna die with Donald Trump in the White House. He said, well, you ain't dying. When I talked to my doctors, they said, I'm on the National Kidney Fund website, and their mouths fall open when I say 875 people have seen my barcode. Because a lot of my students through the years passed it on. Some have gone to try. I've had over technically 6 people, but really more like 10 people to try. I do have a little odd blood type, but that's irrelevant. Bottom line, my husband is now in testing to give me a kidney. We shall see. He's not blood related. No one blood related can handle it. And I'm gonna say something publicly that I'm gonna ask that person in the media in the back to not include. Typically in polycystic, sometimes.
Wait, yeah,
Oh.
Yeah, this is, yeah, we have live.
Thank you for telling me.
Thank you, Miss Natalie.
Okay, so.
Miss Natalie, New York. Hey, you better speak yourself.
Thank you. I was just taking him, I thought he was gonna be on tape, but he's alive. Okay. So I will modify my conversation there and say that, all of us simply have concerns.
That's an interesting personal story that I didn't know. So I'm taken aback a little bit by it, but a lot of people are frustrated in the times that we're living in.
Amen.
I tend to look back over the years and I really think that visionaries like Floyd McKissick were truly visionaries. They really were ahead of their time in a lot of ways. And yet I'm concerned that even had I gone to see Mr. McKissick in the year 2020, if he were living, and he had this idea of a new town in North Carolina built in exactly the same place, would we have been able to make it work? Would there have been enough black and white capital to match a guarantee that might have been about $150 million? I think often about whether, even in this case, 50 years later, you can measure how far we have come, and would we have been ready to do this? I want to think, yes, there is enough capital out there to do it. There is enough capital out there, but would we have done it? That's something to think about. How far has the African American community come in 50 some odd years? When I read about the relative wealth of black families versus white families, 50 years later, after all those marches and demonstrations and all the advancements we have made, we have still been half-stepping in one area. And the country, there are a lot of people that we can place the blame on. Not excluding us as black folks. Had Floyd had investors back then, or developers back then, who had done some things and learned some things, where would we have been? But more importantly, where are we going to be? Where would we be today if we said let's go do this thing? And I'm not as confident. I'm not as confident that we would have been able to touch all the right buttons and make this special city a reality, which would have been, as I said earlier, good for the country had it been done. Now we're in an environment where we're seeing those same civil rights laws that I've talked about.
Cool. Win.
Yeah. We're in an environment where we are seeing many of those civil rights victories being undermined. If they keep going with the Voting Rights Act, there will not be a need to even say that there's such an act, because every 6 years that Congress revisits it, they keep stripping away at that. But I tell my children, you can't get discouraged. You can't afford to be discouraged. We are not really in the same place we were 80 years ago, 70 years ago, 60 years ago. There are too many McKissicks, well-educated and doing well. That all of you in this room have known some of the benefits of all that struggle. Now what are you going to do with it at a time when you need to be stepping forward? I told a group of people the other day, elections really do have consequences. And one of the most salient things that I think has happened is that because of the current administration doing exactly what they told us they were going to do, we are now seeing and becoming victims of those laws and executive orders and all the kinds of things that they brought to bear. But I'm taking heart in the younger people that are coming along. I'm taking heart that you will tell them what our history has been. I'm taking heart that they will, in fact, realize elections really do have consequences. Amen. Consequences, in this particular case, Donald Trump has done so many things to America in 1 year and 2 months than some presidents have ever done in 8 years in office. And he's made some significant changes. Asked all those people in Northern Virginia that are without jobs today. You know, I can go down a list of things where the changes are not going to be even reversed with the next election. Yep. But that does not mean that you don't fight. That's right. And you fight from a stronger place than my great-grandfather did, my grandfather did, succeeding generations did. You're supposed to be smarter, more aware of what's going on. You got a little bit more money. What are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with it? What are you going to do in the situation that we find ourselves?
Thank you.
Chris. I told you, black graduation rules, we gotta use our time properly. Chris.
Good morning. Was Soul City to be governed and policed by its residents and the businesses that were going to be in Soul City? Were they gonna be like business owners that actually live in Soul City? Was the hospital gonna be supplied, like the staff, were they gonna be residents of Soul City?
Well, I think that was definitely the original concept, when we had Health Co. up and functioning for what, 30-ish years? Most of the people that worked in Health Co., so let me say what Health Co. was, okay, it was a health facility, it was not a hospital. So there were doctors, there were dentists, a pharmacy, so a lot of people, and by the way, paid on a scale based upon your income. So that existed. It did not really close until my mother passed, and she passed in 2004. So it survived that long, but it is not functioning since that time. But the original goal was just those people would live and work in Soul City. And as I said, houses are currently now being built again.
How much intentionality went into the idea of building a pool? So,
I just said this on some Facebook page yesterday as I was frustrated with them going on about the negativity of Soul City. I said, it is still, since 1977, the only public pool in Warren County. What does that say? It's the only pool in the entire county. I just told you it's the second largest county in the state. It is huge. When we had snow a couple of weeks ago, people kept complaining about they out of school again. I'm like, did you see those roads? Did you know how many roads they got to do? It was icy, it was rough. It is a huge county, but people came from all over that county and other close by counties to use the Health Co facility. I'm sorry it's not up and running. Like I said, I thought after they bought the building a year ago, there would be some progression.
Ms. Carlini.
Good morning. Thank you for everything that you've done. I do have to leave, but I wanted to take this opportunity. Mr. Lilly asked a question a few moments ago to say thank you, Harvey. Thank you, Harvey Gantt, because Harvey has made an imprint, a handprint on so many things in Charlotte. And I'm truly honored to know him. There's great admiration, and the reason I say that, and one, Johnson C. Smith University, thank you for everything you've done there. But if you didn't know, when he was mayor, he wanted to put the Spectrum Center in town, and people were very opposed to that. But he was adamant that that was gonna happen, and look at it now. So Harvey, thank you for everything that you have done for this city of Charlotte. And, you know, I had the opportunity to be with you when you did run against Jesse Helms, and I have that picture with the arm, and there's a lot to that story. But again, I wanted to, for those who did not know, this man has done so much to make a difference in the city of Charlotte. And I'm going to make my announcements because I have to go. You have a flyer, a fundraiser for Alan Adams. And also you are invited because finally after 7 years, we will do the groundbreaking for the sports complex at Eastland on March 6th at 11 a.m. And you're invited.
Is that groundbreaking?
Groundbreaking, 11 a.m., March 6th, after 7 years, 100,000 square feet.
I just have a big point. Alma Adams was my first boss at Bennett College.
We got a question from Sundiata. Let me ask you, while we get to Sundiata. So during this time, was there what was the intersectionality between your father and another alpha who was around the area during the time in Maynard Jackson? He was attending law school at North Carolina Central. Did you know that they ever had discussion?
Oh, yeah. Well, Maynard's a friend of the family, but both families since forever. I think he and my sister, the oldest was the Jocelyn, were friends. That's all about all I know. I mean, we've been friends with the family and there was a relationship, but Maynard never had a specific role in Soul City.
Seemed like such a line and kind of voices. Sundiata.
Durham, remember? Okay. Just saying, Durham.
Turn your mic on, Sundiata.
Brother, I apologize. Good morning, Ken. What was the why or the intentionality? I grew up hearing about Soul City and it being this black city in the South. What was the intentionality? What was the why behind Soul City? And is that why and that intent still necessary in 2016? And lastly, if it is still necessary, how would you frame the why in 2016? 2026.
Ooh, boy, fly by, don't it?
Well, I said from the top of McKissick Enterprises, before Soul City was specific, and the only thing they did was black economic development. That's really the goal. I've always said that it was never intended, I've heard said this 1,000 times, he had spoke to me on the, remember late in life, my father became an ordained minister. So he always spoke of soul from his personal perspective as agape love from the Bible. So when people, and I want to tell this quick story. I worked one summer at the advertising agency that was doing all the stuff for Soul City. My senior year, I was actually graduated from Carolina. I worked there. Carmichael Advertising. They were the largest in the state at the time. They did North Carolina Zoo. They did Wachovia back in the day, a whole bunch of stuff. And so I was sitting on a bunch of meetings. And it came up about the name change. And this is what this stupid little girl said. Remember now, I do marketing also. I said, why do we need the name to change Soul City? There's a Whiteville, North Carolina. Ain't nobody never said nothing about that. I'm just saying. And that became a little bit part of the story, and me working at the advertising agency and saying, help me understand why y'all think we need to change it. Now, I will admit in 2026, having a marketing background, I understand better that that became problematic for Soul City, the name. So I see now from a 2026 perspective, their problem. Do I agree with the problem? No. But I do see from a marketing perspective why some folk have a problem. But remember, this is the 60s. And back to Harvey's point about capitalism. Perhaps if we had Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, you see what I'm saying? People now who got serious cash, who could have perhaps invested here or there. We didn't have that back then. We do now. Not sure all those people would invest, but.
Also, those people were to go to Winston-Salem State University like I did, they would learn that the people of Whiteville are far from white. They are the blackest of black. Wow. That's down east.
I lived in Lumberton.
So, Mr. Combs, I see you, but the time is now the time. I know, but we have to, please, if you would give us a minute or two, some closing thoughts on just the idea of what we should take from the lessons of Soul City.
We ought to be grateful, in my opinion, that there was a Floyd McKissick back then that had this vision, this confidence that African Americans could build a modern new town. Just think about that. How many years ago? 1968. Way back then, Here was a guy that felt so confident about our abilities that we could put together the design for a new town, we could put it in the most difficult place and make it work. And make it work. Bring the engineering, but bring people with vision who cared. Get investors who could see what he was seeing, that this was a great place to put your dollars, that people would come, people would flock, people would feel encouraged because we had just come out of great victories in the civil rights movement. So don't tell us what we can't do.
Amen.
We can do this. We can make money. We can build up entrepreneurs. We can put people in decent housing. And we can put them in the most modern infrastructure they could have. That's a heck of a vision that he had back then. And whether the name was whatever you want to call it, it didn't really matter. The vision was probably more important for me, at least. That's what motivated me to leave New York and come back down here.
I wanted to let people know, I'm not endorsing the book, nor am I suggesting you buy it. But I did help this gentleman, he's a law professor at Seton Hall, Thomas Healy, about Soul City. There's one section of the book that he and I have argued about where he talks about my sister, but it's historically pretty good. My father, of course, published in '69, 3/5 of a man. We all know what the 3/5 was. I have to tell young people that's what they counted Negroes for when we were doing the Constitution. When the Northerners and Southerners were trying to figure out how we gonna count all them slaves down there, and they said we gonna count them as 3/5 of a man. He originally wrote it as a law school book, but and I now have all of the rest of the copies. It's out of print in my garage. I wrote a book, self-published book a few years ago when I found the love letters of my father's father, Ernest McKissick, to his soon-to-be wife, Magnolia, and added a few other comments. But I had no idea. I had not done my research on World War I, so I didn't know that a whole lot of black soldiers really didn't even go too far. More or less go overseas on the front lines. There were only 2 regiments, and my granddaddy was one of them. And some of the letters are I read a few when I was writing this right before COVID to my students. They were things like, Dr. Mack, who says things, my dearest Magnolia, how I long to caress you again. I said, what y'all gonna write from a tech girl to do good them Daisy Dukes? Like, we're gonna keep that 100 years from now. So this is a tribute to my grandparents, my father's parents. And I will not end with talking about Soul City, but talk about my mom and my dad, because my mother played a significant role. Not only being his support person, but through life. And on their mausoleum, right down the street from my house, it says, lived our lives with courage and conviction.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Harvey Gant and Dr. Charmaine. No, McKissick, no. Yeah, no problem. Ooh, quickly, if they said right now, would you take the deal again? Soul City, he's good.
Oh, yeah.
Every time.
I thought I was trying to tell you that.
Every time. Man, ooh, it's good to believe in something. Y'all, next week we are talking about Charlotte's influence in the music industry. We're gonna have a lot of folk here who have impacted a national music scene that you would have no idea started right here in Charlotte. So join us on the 24th at 8:30. We'll go into announcements. Mr. Combs.
I'd just like to announce that, you heard me announce or mention earlier the 1972 license tag.
Self-published.
And I'd just like to acknowledge that the system is the sister who owns a coffee shop called Archive CLT, and I hope you all will join us over there after this meeting. The young black woman who owns a Black History and Culture and Black Ephemera coffee shop happens to be here today, and she would love to serve you both a cup of coffee and see the ephemera that she's collected there in regards to the McKissicks and the Gants. And Sharice Terry, standing.
No, for real. A lot of people know about both of you because of Sharice Terry in Archive. Robert, then Arlethea.
Thursday morning, 8 a.m., tune into my radio show, the Greater Thoughts Radio Show. You can get there by WDRB Media or the untrackmind.com. This Thursday, I will have Miss Carlenia Ivory Canty on the show, so it's a great show for you to listen to.
Thank you. Before you go, while you make your way to Arlethea, Miss Jackie, hold up that, yes, we got a donation container. So again, we started at breakfast, now we got coffee. So donations are important. We want to keep coffee. So if you got a little something for the donation, jar, if you will, go ahead and slide us something. Arlethea.
Good morning, Arlethea Hellstock, Blumenthal Arts. You have 1 more month to apply for our scholarships at Blumenthal Arts. They are available to high school seniors, and one of the scholarships is also available to college freshmen and sophomores. There's money to send your babies to school, and they don't have to be performers. Please apply. Thank you.
Awesome. Mr. Russell.
Good morning, everybody. I want to let you know this Thursday at 7 p.m. WBTV is having a Black History Month special entitled Trailblazers and Visionaries, 100 Years of Black Influence. So it'll be this Thursday, the 19th, from 7 to 8 p.m. on WBTV.
Is that it? Dr. Mack.
And Carter G. Woodson, who created Negro History Week. This is 100 years that we have been celebrating now, Black History Month.
Thank you so much. What else can we say? We got Dr. Mack right here, Harvey Dent right here. This is the Black History live in the flesh. And again, we paid no retainer. Thank you for your reputation. Sarah Stevenson to the forum.
Okay.